Hi, all my followers and viewers and listeners. I'm so honored to be able to present my next guest for my podcast. Her name is Elisa Brown. She's an amazing singer, writer, dancer. Are you a dancer?
Oh,
And
like they make me look like I am one, but I wouldn't put that on my resume.
but I'm so honored. She's got a voice of an angel, and you'll see why she's my next guest on my podcast because she's got so much to share and something big, exciting is happening for her, and she's going to be a one-woman show. I can see it already on off-Broadway, Broadway. I see a star in the making. And here we are with Elisa Brown to tell us who she is and why I chose her to be one of my special podcast guests, and honored to be her friend. And I'm here. It's all yours now.
Oh, thank you, Monica. You always make me want to cry. You're so sincere, which is, I think, why we get along, because we wear our emotions on our sleeves, so we know we're gentle with one another. So I really appreciate that you've asked me to be on your podcast. I mean, I'm following the likes of Hillary Clinton, which, she's no slouch. So I'm really honored. You and I met years ago because of my involvement on another project to raise money for peace. And that's been kind of it's the hallmark of what it is that I have been trying to do my entire professional life. I came to New York years ago, but my first trip to New York was as a classical singer. That was what I studied to be in my native Texas. I just decided that instead of singing like Loretta Lynn, I wanted to sing like Anamafo. And of course, my daddy in this picture back here, my late father, told me that I had rocks in my head because nobody likes all that long-haired music, and that just a fraction of the population cares about it. No one knows what you're saying in all those foreign languages. But I gave him my word at 15, because when you're 15, you're brilliant. And I said, that's singing.
All about that.
Yeah, true. Oh yes,
Having two teenagers, I know all about it.
Oh, it's exhausting. It's that having teenagers is, I think, God's way of getting us to want them to leave home. As a parent, instead of, I can't let my baby go, it's like, no, you need to go. So at least that was my experience. But anywho, my daddy wanted me to be a country singer, and I chose a classical route. And I told him that singing country and pop for a bunch of folks was the last thing I ever wanted to do. And I crossed my heart and hoped to die, promise that was the truth. And my daddy told me that if I pursued a career as a classical singer, I'd probably have to eat those words because I'd be starving to death. And he was right, because it's been a real tough road to hoe. But as when you find your purpose and your heart's in it, that's the road to go down. Even if other folks say not so much, you have to make your mistakes and wrong turns, but you learn from all of those. And so when I came to New York as a singer after I'd finished my professional studies, I won a competition to sing with the New York Bach Aria Society. Now they don't have that anymore, but back in the day that was a big deal. So I came on up to New York City, and I was all excited, and we were going to have our debut concert at NYU at a concert hall there, and I was performing with top instrumentalists. I'd studied the books that they'd written. I mean, these people were like, gods in my mind. So with the day of the concert comes, and we're there at the hall, and this freak blizzard came in, and it closed the city down. Nobody could get anywhere, and we couldn't leave the concert hall. So the musicians all decided, well, let's just open the door and we'll just do the concert for homeless people. And we did. So my first concert in New York was for an audience of people who were from the streets, and it was wonderful.
Probably the best audience.
If you cultivate love, you'll harvest blessings, and that's a saying that my late artistic director Hector Zaraspe would always say. And in this regard, it was cultivating love of music for these people who had nothing. And the blessings that we cultivated from that was, you could see that there was a healing going on for some, who knows what goes on in someone's hearts. But when you sing or perform and have a truth for yourself, then and you really mean it in your performance, then it'll touch a truth in the hearts of the listener. At least that's the goal. And that there could be a healing for someone's highest and best good. We never know what that is, but that's always been my intention. And so here I saw that intention in action, and it was astounding. I was so moved that I decided that whenever I sang, I would sing with the purpose of helping others, not to give them a voice because everybody has one, but to give their voice a platform, because a lot of people aren't heard. And so I started pursuing a career like that. And that's actually how we met, right?
That's what you exactly I was going to say. And you sang so beautifully for my documentary screening, Committed to Memory, that I did at the Jewish Heritage Museum, and honored that you were able to do that, and everybody was moved. And also you did the eulogy for my father, his passing 3 years ago, and sang the songs he liked to sing with Patsy Cline, and the songs that he makes me think of him. And you did that so well as well. So you did healing. That's exactly what you did. You were a product of helping us heal. And we all know the loss and, 9/11 and my father passing 3 years ago. So you're right. Singing is very healing and powerful.
Well, the thing is, throughout my career, I came to New York, and I just thought I was going to hit it big, and I did. I hit it big right on my fanny. I mean, I just flat on my fanny, because pride goes before a fall, and I just thought I was all that in a bag of chips, and I wasn't. I was just the bag. It was so awful. I made every single mistake in the books. I mean, you name it, I did it, and I invented a few of my own. I have a show coming up where I talk about I was so desperate for work. I mean, I had a day job in an office to pay for my vocal habit, but I didn't make enough money to eat. So I had to sing at night, literally sing for my supper. And it was getting really desperate, and I didn't know anybody. And wow, subway fares went up from 90 cents to $1. And that 10 cents was more than I could afford. And it was awful. And so I decided to audition for a Broadway show. But when you asked me if I was a dancer, I have to laugh because I hadn't studied any kind of dance when I came to New York. I wanted to be a classical singer. And so, I could kick or dance, and I knew how to Lindy Hop and waltz and polka that Daddy taught me. But, to dance classically, I had no training. So there was this audition for a show. I didn't know it, but I'd heard about it, and I didn't know anyone to ask what's the show about. And they didn't have the internet back then, so that you couldn't look it up. And I just heard about it. And I thought, well, I'll just run over there with my headshot and my bio, my CV, and I'll sing. It was "Art is Calling for Me" by Victor Herbert. It's kind of a operetta, if you think of Gilbert and Sullivan, like that. Yeah. So I sang, and it was at the Schubert Theater, which is a venerable theater, or as we say in Texas, a theater. And so, and so I get on over there.
I love it.
and I auditioned, and I made callbacks. Well, now let me tell you, that's no guarantee that you're going to get the job, but it means you're one step closer, right? So I'm all excited. And they said, well, come on back and wear character shoes instead of the snow boots that I had on that I auditioned in, because I didn't know you weren't supposed to just wear what you had. So I come back, and we're all lined up, and it's boy, girl, and I'm at far stage right. And when you're standing on the stage, you can't see anybody, because if they have the lights on, you literally are blinded. So there was this, like lady voice, I couldn't see her, asking people to dance individually. Well, now all the fellas danced like Baryshnikov. No kidding. I mean, they were amazing. And the gals danced like Pavlova, and I was so impressed. And then they asked me to do some movements, and I said, oh, no, I don't dance. I'm just auditioning for the singer's part, because the audition sheet said singers and dancers. And everybody just kind of went, oh. And that lady the disembodied voice lady, she started asking me questions to see if I was really as stupid as I appeared to be. And I confirmed her suspicions. I sure did. She said, do you not understand what singers and dancers means, dear? And I said, no. I'm a singer. And she said, well, no. And she explained to me that it's singers, dancers, and actors means somebody from each category. But apparently singers and dancers means someone who can sing and dance while eating a sandwich and doing a somersault. And that was not me. So she says, can you do anything? So I can kick or dance, and so she had this dance guy come over, and I could do pretty much what he was asking for, except for the pirouettes, and I can't pirouette. My center of gravity's in my nose, apparently. So I was just terrible. So she said, you don't know the show, do you? And I said, well, no, ma'am. And I'm a classical singer, and all we do is park and bark. And I just thought you need somebody for the chorus. And she said, well, not quite. And you might want to do your research before you waste people's time and audition for something that's not well suited for you. She was very nice. She really did me a favor. And she told me I should study at a place called Steps on 72nd Street in the West Side. And before I ever auditioned for any kind of a Broadway show again. And I didn't have money to buy food, so that wasn't happening, but I thanked her. And then I left, and I was just mortified. So when I got back to work and I started asking around, well, have y'all ever seen this show? And people were telling me what it was about. You want to know what the show was?
Yes, go ahead.
A chorus line.
Oh my. Oh, yeah, that's a show. That's a show.
Yeah, like that's you have to be able to sing and dance while you can say I want you to do it a somersault. But that was art imitating life, because man, did I need that job. It was awful. And you don't tell anybody you're auditioning, because you don't get most of them. You get about 10%. And you can audition 9 times and get the 10th one, or 90 times and get the last 100. But if you tell everybody you're auditioning the first 90 times, they'll think you're a loser. So, it's lonesome. So, it took me a while to get my feet on the ground and what have you. But, I was still singing for various organizations to raise money and awareness. But then I had to sing for myself to put food on the table. So I started singing in upholstered sewers at night. I mean, horrible, horrible places for tips. And, when people say in New York, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. They're not a wolfing, that little boy who cried wolf, they're not kidding. It was so hard. You're from here. So for you, it's old hat. But for me, I felt like I'd moved to Mars.
Oh my God. Well, New York is tough. It is tough, but if you can make it here, that's very true. You can survive here. You're gonna make it big. Trust me. So, and you're getting there. You're almost there.
Well, I've had a fair amount of success. When most people who do what I do to raise awareness for people whose voices are not heard start out as A-listers. They get a career going, and then they have a following, and then they'll go do some charitable work, such as what I'm doing to help others. I did it the other way around, which is hard, and it's not typical, very atypical. But that is what I did, and I sang. I produced a show on my own at the Lambs Theater, or as we say theater, in New York City. And it was Italian Baroque music. And actually the Italian Cultural Institute presented me. They asked me to do a show. And, I think that if you put it out there, what it is that you need, and allow the universe to provide without putting any parameters on there, stuff's going to happen that you just can't imagine. And so I knew I wanted to do something on off-Broadway or Broadway. And then this came about quite unexpectedly. And I knew I needed a theater. And there was a young lady who worked for my husband, and her parents were evangelists with they worked at the Lambs Theater. And the Lambs Theater at that time was doing a show, some Shakespeare show or what have you. I think Much Ado About Nothing, or the Merchant of Venice. That's it. And so anyway, they said, "Oh, do you want to use the theater for free?" And I said, "Sure." Okay. And well, I might need a few rehearsals. And they went, "Oh, well, okay. Well, can you pay us something?" And I'm like, "Okay. How much do you want?" And they were like, "Nothing, very little." And I'm like, "Okay." And then I needed costumes, and these costume people, company down in Florida who provided costumes for the Met and what have you. They're like, "Oh, yeah, we'll help you with that." You will. And so I did some bartering with marketing and whatever, because I had my day job to pay for my vocal habit, became director of marketing of a Fortune 500 company. So I was able to barter here and there. And so I got beautiful costumes. And then I worked with a fabulous, he was actually a client of my husband's. He's a choreographer and dancer by the name of Gabriel Chajnik. And so he did the choreography, and he also performed in the show. And the show was called Spirito e Core, which means heart and soul, like that. So the first half was all this very religious stuff of early Baroque Italian music. And the last half was like commedia dell'arte, the chiaroscuro. You've seen the masks of, smiling, sad, like that.
Yes.
And so, unbeknownst to me, there were some real VIPs in the audience. And this one fellow, he just passed away a few days ago, Hector Zaraspe, came backstage and said, "I'd like to talk to you." Now, I knew who he was, but I had no idea what he wanted to talk to me about. And he had been the coach the private coach for Rudolf Nureyev and Marco Fontaine. And he also taught at Juilliard in the dance department. And he was a luminary in the world of choreography. And he also taught what's called applied dance. And he had a foundation, I'm sure it's still ongoing, even though he's passed, called the Zaraspe Foundation. And he told me, "I'd like to work with you and teach you applied dance if you would like to do some work for my foundation." And what he did was he fed, clothed, and housed 200 little children and elderly people down in the state of Tucumán, Argentina, who had been abandoned to live, and they would go off and live in the jungle, and they would die from exposure. And so he made it his mission to rescue these little children and elderly people whose families just didn't want them anymore. And I said, well, I think I could do that. And so I started studying with him. And he was just wonderful. And he's the one who said, if you cultivate love, you'll harvest blessings. And it was wonderful. And I got to sing all over South America and Spain and all of these things, all these wonderful places in fabulous venues, and some pretty rough places too. And the little children and elderly people for whom we were singing, they were so grateful. We'd go out to visit them. Maestro had gotten a sugarcane refinery that had been abandoned, given to him, and that's where these little children and elderly people would live, so they wouldn't be out in nature. And they only had electricity during the day, and we would provide them with one big meal a day, and they'd have apples and things like that to take, and clothing. They just had the one outfit. Sometimes they didn't have shoes. And we'd go there, and I'd bring them lollipops and things, and I would come back, every several months from the United States, and they would have the sticks from the lollipops, because that's all they had. And when you see stuff like that, you just think, oh, what else can I do for you? And it really changed me in a way that it was at a cellular level, that I really, really wanted to go even further to help folks, kind of what you do with what you're doing to help others who have been victims of 9/11 and the firefighters and all of these things. You just want to help folks who've been put in a way in a circumstance over which they had no control.
That's correct. Mental illness too is a problem. PST, post-traumatic stress. It's affecting a lot of us.
Oh, sure. And I know for you that this has been a path that could be very healing and very, very restorative for you, but not that you can ever eliminate what happened and the pain and the suffering from that point of view, but it can help you get behind it so that you can get ahead of it in a way. I mean, you can get past that and learn to understand it. No, I don't know I'm not saying it correctly. To learn how to manage that and move on and have happiness in your life.
God is good. That's my, thank God for God. Because
thank goodness for God.
Yeah, if I didn't have my faith, I don't think I'd survive this nightmare. So
that's actually part and parcel of what it is that is so central to what it is that I do. After I had done these wonderful work with the Zaraspe Foundation, I met a fabulous musictarian, he calls himself. His name is Barry Goldstein, and he's a Grammy Award-winning record producer. And I met Barry at a music sound healing workshop. A friend of mine told me I should go, and I had no idea what that was, but okay, I went. And I see this nebbishy guy sitting there with his acoustic guitar, and I'm thinking, oh, it's going to be a kumbaya weekend. Oh, geez, I'm going to have to tell them I feel well, and I'm out of here. And that's another pride goes before a fall, because I hadn't done my research. And Barry started to play, and he was fabulous. It was a brilliant, he is a brilliant musician, and he just captured my heart right from the first note. And that workshop gave me a vocabulary for what it was I was doing intuitively all along. And so I told him, I said, this was great. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, but thank you so much. And that's when Barry said, well, why don't we make a CD together? And that we did. It was called the Ave Maria Experience. And it was 10 different versions of the Bach Gounod Ave Maria, which was my late father's favorite hymn, that song, that and the Lord's Prayer. But that CD just was my golden ticket, and it opened up doors for me that I never knew existed. So and from that point, people were calling me up and telling me that it saved their lives, it saved their family, their relationship with their daughters. One woman told me to my face that she was going to take her life that evening, and when she heard this music, she felt that the Divine Mother, the Blessed Mother, was speaking to her to tell her to hold on. And so then she started using that CD with AA in AA meetings and selling it to people and what have you. And I was like,
Your Ave Maria is powerful. You sang it for me as well for my documentary.
it's a song that I think everybody, doesn't matter if you're Catholic or Jewish or whatever, we all have a mother, we all have someone who we look at as, please, be a blessing in my life, and you are a blessing in my life. Please help me, give me guidance. And so this was my foray into something that was classical, but that had a popular aspect to it. And which was real different for me. The work that I did for the Zaraspe Foundation, I sang a lot of Spanish musical theater, which is called zarzuela, and that's like Gilbert and Sullivan, but with a Spanish accent. And I learned dance, and I learned how to dance some of the Spanish dances, and to play castanets, and I even played castanets with orchestra as a soloist. I loved it, and I just seemed to have a natural a penchant for it. And of course, it took a lot of practicing, and then maestro coaching me. But so I started doing that, and so I kind of was not necessarily the classic opera or Bach or Mozart, but moving away from that. So when I did the Bach Gounod Ave Maria, those renditions are in a popular format, a little different. So I blended the two, kind of a cutting edge classical sound. And that just led me to actually, I met a fabulous lady by the name of Debbie Peterson, and she started something called the Wellness Galas. Her son had Tourette's, and he was cured of Tourette's through an energy healer. And she thought people needed to know that there are alternative therapies out there that you can pursue that might be a benefit. So I met her, and we started working together, and she introduced me to a fabulous guitarist by the name of Virginia Luque. And Virginia Luque started an orchestra called the New York Women's Philharmonic, and they made their Carnegie Hall debut, raising money for Children of the Night. Children of the Night is a not-for-profit that was started in 1979 out in LA by Dr. Lois Lee. And Dr. Lee has rescued over 10,000 children from child prostitution since 1979. So this was a concert to introduce her to the New York audience. And Virginia liked my work, and she asked me if I'd like to make my Carnegie Hall debut. And she wrote a song for me, and that's how that happened, quite unexpectedly. So, these little gifts here and there. And
that's where you're now gonna talk about. You have to talk about what's going on now, the big news.
Oh, well, that it goes on. At the next level was I got offered out of the blue via LinkedIn an opportunity to have my own show on PBS. So then I did that, and that was just amazing. Well, and just helping others. And it was all about how art can change society or shape society. And it was called The Heart of Art with Elisa Brown. Okay. So I'm moving along and I'm getting work, and, I'm happy with my life and the course that it's taking. And then sadly, my daddy was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Now, my daddy was brilliant, and he had what's called an eidetic memory, and he never forgot anything at all. So the thought of him succumbing to that disease seemed to be impossible, but it got him just like it did everybody, it does everybody. Well, anyway, Daddy lived down there in Dallas, and I live up here in New Jersey, and he was afraid that he would forget me. And so he asked me if I would write some country and pop songs that he could listen to before he moved on to heaven. And he said if he could hear them every day and hear me singing, he thought he would remember me. Well, I did. I did just that. I gave him my word, which was a big deal in my family. If you give your word, you got to do it. Otherwise, you're a scoundrel. And Daddy didn't know where he was, but he knew where he had been. So I went way back into our family's history, all the way back to my great grandma Pearl. Actually, she's the elderly lady in the picture back behind me. And well, all the way back to 1888. And what I did was I chose stories that were meaningful to my daddy and me, and I paired them with the kind of music or my homage to the kind of music that Daddy liked. And these are the things that I learned all the way back in when I worked with Barry Goldstein. And our musical memories are actually our most deeply seated memories of all. So music from your childhood, it can help to release or open up someone's memory who's suffering with cognitive decline. They use this in music and memory all the time, and especially in places where they treat people who suffer with cognitive decline. And you can create a playlist of their people's favorite songs, and they listen to it again and again and again. And sometimes people who are completely catatonic will all of a sudden start talking and tell you about their childhood and their grandma and what have you. And even these same people can perform in concerts. They won't know anything. They walk out on stage, they start playing, these people can perform, and at least they're alive and present at that moment, and it's wonderful for their families. It was just amazing. So I thought, well, I'll create my own little playlist for Daddy, and I did, and he loved it. And I performed those songs at the Bitter End, which is a club in New York City. And a Broadway producer came, and he said, oh, well, those would make a fun show. And when I mentioned it to my daddy, he asked me to promise to make it into a show, and I did. But unfortunately, my daddy moved on to heaven before I could produce the show. And then even when I wanted to produce it, COVID hit, and it just got put off and put off and put off. So finally, I had what's called a workshop performance debut last June in New Jersey at the Hackensack Performing Arts Center. And it went real well, and folks liked it. And I was asked to perform in New York City. And you came to that performance.
And it was amazing and inspiring, I have to say. It was a one-woman show. I loved it.
Well, and it's so funny because I pulled out my best bib and tucker and all my cowgirl duds, which I actually have in my closet. And I didn't have to really search far for costumes and what have you. And I got a crack team of musicians. They're just amazing. In fact, for this upcoming performance in May at the Leonard Nimoy Thalia at Peter Norton's Symphony Space. I know that's a mouthful, but that's what they're called. And it's on 95th and Broadway.
What are you dance there? I know.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, people go, oh, Symphony Space, but they've got a lot of different places there, so you have to name the theater. So anyway, the music director is a fabulous musician by the name of Jana Giglio, and she was the music director for Jersey Boys. I mean, I got that level of musician working with me, and oh boy, is it a lot of fun. And so I even had to hire a publicist. I just feel like, look at me, but it's just because it's too much work. I can't do it all. And so we're raring to go, and we're going to be performing it on May 7th. It's a Sunday at 3:00. And you can go to my website, elisabrownmusic.com, and you can take a look see if it looks like something of interest to you. And if you like it, you can.
I think everybody needs to go and see that one woman show because it's amazing. So, and people will love it. So I'm
But
giving you a big shout out for that because I've seen it and I know it's going to be amazing again. So, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again. So
well, when we talk about music and healing and what have you, when I did the premiere show, I donated a nice portion of the proceeds to the Rotary Foundation. I'm a Rotarian for a long time, and I to the Rotary Foundation so that it would go to something called Gift of Life. And Rotary has
big fan of the Rotary.
yeah, I was wonderful. Love the Rotary, and they help children who have a heart condition, and I think my club has helped save the lives of countless children who would otherwise perish. And so the monies that are raised, 100% of the monies go to help these children have a heart transplant or heart surgeries that otherwise they would not survive. And this is worldwide, and that's just something I can really believe in. And so for this next performance, I'll also be donating money I belong to the Paramus, New Jersey Rotary Club, and I'll be donating money from the proceeds, the profits from there as well. And well, no, actually just the proceeds, because I'm not sure about the profits. These things are expensive. But anyway, it's just really important to me to give back because this is a gift. And I want to share it with others, and then I want to share the good news with people who are doing what I want to do, but on a really broad, big level. So like you.
Yes, there you go. We're getting ready to wrap it up. I like the fact that we're in sync. We both wore blue without even knowing that. It's happened with my last guest too. I'm like, wow, how does that work?
Well, I have to laugh because when I answered, I love this.
And the earrings, I know those earrings too.
Oh, these earrings. Oh, these are made by a fellow Texan. Her name is Blake Maloof, and she started this jewelry line. These are all like individual pieces, and it's called Bright Raven, Brite Raven.
Yeah, and we're going to make sure on the podcast that we link all the websites, your YouTube stuff, and her website as well, so that people can see.
I appreciate you listening to me just yammer on, or as we say, just I've been yarning away. That means I'm storytelling.
Good. That's why we have to wrap it up now, because we're at that time, and I know my listeners are going to be really pleased to see and hear what we had to say today, and looking forward to the show on May 7th. I'm very excited. So I'm giving you a big shout out. I want to just say, I'm honored that you were here, and I'm so glad to be able to share who you are with the world, pretty much.
Oh, thank you. I'm so kisses. I feel so very blessed. Thank you so very much.
Yes. All right, my love. I will see you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.